So there is one more thing about this Oilers Canucks playoff series that I do want to take a moment to say. Before the moment to say it has completely passed, and that is that, for me personally, I'm just going to kind of put this out there. And this is really more on me than anything else. I'm not going to go into great detail, uh, but there was some emotional baggage for me, with this whole playoff series. And I kind of feel like if the Oilers had lost, I don't think that I would have been capable of being a good sport about it. It isn't really anything to do with. It isn't even really anything to do with the Canucks themselves or their fans themselves. It's to do with one particular fan, and that fan knows full well who they are. I'm not going to go into any details about it. It's a lot of dirt of it that isn't really my dirt to talk about. But even though I feel like would not have been able to be a good sport about it if the Oilers had lost, I do know quite a few Canucks fans who actually have been really good sports about it. They've been much better about it. Much better about it than me. To be honest with you. And even though there was quite a bit of obnoxiousness kind of emanating out of that Canucks fan base. On one hand, I kind of think to myself that maybe you notice it a little bit more when it's somebody else's fans than when it's like the fan base that you're a part of. So there is that. I mean, the obnoxious little kid, with the fuck Zach Hyman, fuck Jack Campbell. They could suck my dick all they want because the Vancouvers are winning. That kid, that's a little bit disturbing. Pretty obnoxious. But maybe you just notice it more from other teams' fans. That's possible. But the one thing that I do want to say is that I actually really admire the way that the Canucks fans that were there for Game 7, still supported their team, even in defeat. And I honestly kind of wish that Oilers fans were quite a bit more like that. I've seen the Oilers fans when I've seen Oilers fans when the Oilers win, and I have seen us when the Oilers lose. And let me tell you something: when the Oilers lose, we're nothing like that. We're not cheering the team at center ice, waving those towels or the shakers or whatever. No, when this team loses, it feels like a lot of the fans, they get down on them like this, and then suddenly it's like, oh well, this person's a shit player and this person's a shit player. We need to get rid of this guy and this guy and this guy. And we need to get rid of half the team, and yeah, it doesn't feel nearly as positive and supportive as those fans did, you know, the evening of Game 7 there on Monday night. But at the same time, I mean, on the other hand, I mean, this really was a huge thing for them, for any number of reasons. The biggest one being that, I mean, we kind of need to keep in mind that this is a team that, sat out of the playoffs for quite a few years before this season. And then suddenly they bust out of the gate. And not only do they win the Pacific Division, which they did win the Pacific Division, I think that they mostly won it fair and square. But then they go to the second round of the playoffs and they go to 7 games against one of the best teams in the league. Yeah, actually, I think I do definitely understand how the Canucks fans could be so enthusiastic about that. They could still support a team like that even in defeat. But I also kind of feel like we in Edmonton should be able to appreciate our team to the same, to the same extent. And I think that really we don't. I think that I notice more fair weather fans at the Edmonton Oilers fan base than I do in any other fan base. And this was just an example of that to me. And so, even though, you know, I have, it's one of my flaws, I think. It's a flaw that I have, where I personally would not have been able to be nearly as good a sport about this series if it had turned out the other way. I still got to tip my hat, to the Vancouver Canucks fan base. I think that team is going to be in a very good position, for the next several years, as long as that fan base keeps that energy. I think that I think there's going to be. I think they're going. I think there's a very good chance they're going to do something that is going to give the rest of the league a lot of reason to be envious. And I think that right there is going to be one of the big factors driving it.